My name is Olivia Sterling. I'm 28 years old, and 13 years ago, on a night when the sky itself seemed to be screaming, my father looked me dead in the eye and said 6 words I will never forget. Get out. I don't need a sick daughter. I was 15, soaked to the bone, standing on my own front porch with nowhere in the world to go. The reason was simple, and it was nothing. My younger sister told a lie, a careful, deliberate, well-rehearsed lie, and my parents swallowed it whole without a second of doubt. Just like that, after 15 years of being their daughter, I ceased to exist. 3 hours later, the police called my parents to a hospital. I had been hit by a car. When my father walked into that room and saw who was sitting beside my bed, all the color drained out of his face. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. You can't be here," he stammered. "How did you?" The woman sitting there, the woman who had found me broken on the side of the road and refused to leave, was Dr. Eleanor Smith, one of the most respected professors in the entire state. That night rewired the rest of my life. Last month, I stood on a stage as the keynote speaker at my sister's college graduation. My parents had absolutely no idea I was coming. Before I tell you what happened when they saw me standing there, if you're the kind of person who finds meaning in stories like this, I'd genuinely appreciate a like, and if you want more, hit subscribe. And I always love knowing where in the world you're listening from. Drop it in the comments. Now let me take you back to where all of this started. I learned early that in our house, my sister Madison's tears were louder than anything I ever did. When I was 11, I won first place at the regional science fair. My water filtration project beat out 40 other kids. I remember running the whole way home, the blue ribbon crushed in my fist, bursting through the front door so excited I could barely breathe. "I won," I shouted. My mother smiled, pulled me into a hug. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Then Madison walked in from dance practice. 8 years old, face blotchy, tears streaming. I messed up my pirouette. Everyone laughed at me. My mother's arms left me mid-hug. She knelt down and pulled Madison close instead. "Oh, baby, it's okay. You'll do better next time." I stood there holding my ribbon. Nobody asked to see it again. That was the shape of our whole childhood. Madison needed more. Madison was sensitive. Madison required careful handling, like she was something breakable and I was something built to last. So I learned to shrink. I learned to celebrate my own wins quietly, in private, where they couldn't be interrupted. By 14, I'd stopped even bringing my report cards downstairs. Straight A's didn't stand a chance against a B- and a flood of tears. When I got accepted into a prestigious summer science program, full scholarship, 2 weeks with real researchers, I was thrilled beyond words. My father barely looked up from his phone. "That's nice, Olivia." Madison burst into tears. "Why does she get to go away? That's not fair." My mother squeezed Madison's shoulder. "Olivia, maybe you could skip it this year. Your sister needs." "I need you here," Madison finished for her. I didn't go. They called it family unity. They called it being the bigger person. What it actually taught me was how to disappear quietly, how to want less so there'd be less to take away. But the real breaking point was still coming. I just didn't know it would arrive wrapped in a storm. The lying started small. Madison, 12 now, would take things from my room without asking, and deny it, even when the evidence was sitting in plain sight on her own bed. "I never touched your sweater," she'd say, wearing it. My mother's response was always the same sigh. "Olivia, don't start fights." Then $50 disappeared from my mother's wallet. Madison said she'd seen me near the purse that morning. I hadn't been anywhere near it. I'd left for school early that day. My father called me into his study. "Did you take money from your mother?" "No, I didn't." "Madison says you did." "Madison's lying." His jaw went tight. "Don't accuse your sister." "But I didn't." "Enough," his voice cut clean through mine. "I'm disappointed in you, Olivia. I thought you were better than this." I lost my phone for a month. The science camp I'd been promised for the following summer quietly vanished too. "We can't trust you with that kind of independence right now," my mother said, like I'd been caught, not accused. Madison watched the whole thing from the staircase. When our parents weren't looking, she smiled. That $50 wasn't really about the money. It was a test, and she just learned she could get away with anything. After that, the pattern only grew teeth. A broken vase, somehow my fault. A failed test she never studied for, somehow because I hadn't helped her enough. A rumor at school about her cheating, somehow, impossibly, I had started it. I stopped even trying to defend myself. What was the point? They believed her tears over my truth every single time, without fail, like it was written into the walls of the house. I remember one afternoon in particular, not because it was dramatic, but because it was so small it barely registered at the time. I'd made the honor roll again, third semester in a row, and I'd taped the letter to the refrigerator myself, quietly, without announcing it, the way you'd slip a note into someone's pocket and hope they'd find it eventually. 3 days later, I noticed it wasn't there anymore. I asked my mother about it in passing. "Oh," she said, not even looking up from the sink. "Madison needed the space for her recital flyer. I figured you wouldn't mind." I minded. I minded more than I let myself admit, standing there in that kitchen, with the faint rectangular ghost of tape still stuck to the refrigerator door where my name used to be. But I nodded, and said it was fine, because saying it was fine had become the only language I had left in that house. By 15, I felt like a ghost living in my own home. Present, but invisible, until someone needed a place to put the blame. I started staying at school later, at the library longer, anywhere that wasn't home. I joined the debate team not because I loved arguing, but because practice ran until 6 and gave me 2 extra hours a day where nobody could accuse me of anything. I told myself, I just had to survive 2 more years until college. That endurance alone would eventually be enough to buy my freedom. I was wrong about how much time I actually had left. It was October of my junior year, and the whole week had felt heavy before anything even happened. There was a boy in my AP chemistry class named Jake Nice, terrible at balancing equations, the kind of person who says thank you like he means it. He'd asked me for homework help a few times, and I'd stayed after class to walk him through stoichiometry. That was the entire story. Homework help. Madison had a massive crush on him, the kind where you practice writing his last name next to yours in a notebook you think no one will ever see. I'd seen hers once, by accident, returning a pen she'd borrowed. That Tuesday, Jake caught me at my locker. "Hey, thanks for yesterday, you really saved me." "No problem. Maybe we could study together before the midterm." "Sure, library works." He walked off smiling. 20 feet down the hall, I caught Madison watching us. Her face had gone pale. That night at dinner, she barely spoke, just pushed pasta around her plate, while our mother kept asking if she felt sick. Madison only shrugged. I should have known that her silence was far more dangerous than her tears ever were. By Friday, storm warnings were everywhere, flood watches, wind advisories, the kind of forecast that makes a whole town go quiet and careful. I remember thinking I'd finally get a peaceful weekend to catch up on homework. I had no idea what she was planning. The rain started around 6. We ate dinner in near silence, the weather alert buzzing on my father's phone every few minutes. Madison wouldn't meet my eyes. After dinner, I went up to do homework while the wind began throwing itself against the windows. Around 8, I heard crying downstairs. Loud, theatrical, heaving sobs. I put my pen down and listened. My mother's voice soothing. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? Talk to me." More crying. Then my father's voice, sharp as a blade. "Olivia, get down here, now." My stomach dropped through the floor. I walked downstairs one heavy step at a time. Madison was curled against our mother on the couch, face swollen with tears. My father stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, jaw set like stone. "What's going on?" I asked. Madison looked up at me. For half a second, less than half a second, something cold flickered behind those tears. Then it was gone, replaced by a trembling lip. "Why do you hate me so much?" "I don't hate you." "Then why," she hiccuped, "have you been spreading rumors about me at school?" My mind emptied out completely. What rumors? She pulled up her phone with shaking hands and showed my mother a screenshot, a group chat, messages supposedly sent from my account, cruel things I would never say about my own sister. My name was on it. My photo. I didn't write those, I said. Someone's using my account. Stop, my father's voice cracked like a whip. Just stop lying. And Jake, Madison whispered. You knew I liked him. You've been flirting with him, trying to embarrass me. He asked me for help with chemistry. That's all it was. You've been meeting him at the library, trying to steal him from me. She stood up, voice rising. And last week you pushed me on the stairs. She yanked up her sleeve to reveal a dark, ugly bruise on her forearm. I stared at it. I never touched you. She did, Mom. My mother stepped between us, her face suddenly hard. Olivia, this is serious. If you hurt your sister. I didn't. Then how did she get that? I don't know, I said, desperation creeping into my voice. Maybe she did it herself. The room went dead silent. Madison's eyes went wide, and fresh tears sprang up right on cue. You think I'd hurt myself just to frame you? Yes, because you do this. You've been lying about me for years. That's enough, my mother said, her voice trembling now too, though I couldn't tell if it was from anger or from something closer to fear. I don't even recognize you right now, Olivia. Because you've never actually looked at me, I said. Not once, not really. My father took a step toward me. Is this true? You've been bullying your own sister. No, God, no, please just listen. I've heard enough. His fist came down on the mantel hard enough to rattle the picture frames. I've heard enough of your excuses. They're not excuses, please. There's nothing to explain, my mother said quietly, and somehow her quiet was worse than his shouting. I thought we raised you better than this. Madison sobbed into her hands, the perfect portrait of a victim. I looked at her, really looked, and for one unguarded moment her eyes were completely dry. Calculating, steady. You're lying, I whispered. I'm not, she said, and her voice didn't shake at all. I turned to my father, begging. Please, you have to believe me, I would never hurt her. She's doing this because Jake doesn't like her back. His voice went flat and cold in a way I'd never heard before. I don't want to hear another word out of you. Something's wrong with you. The word landed like a slap. Sick. You need help, he said, professional help. But right now, he pointed at the door, I need you out of my sight. Thunder cracked against the windows. Dad, it's storming. I don't care. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem. His face twisted into something I didn't recognize. Get out. I don't need a sick daughter like you in this house. I looked at my mother, silently begging her to say something, anything, to stop this. She turned away and pulled Madison closer instead. My hands shook so badly I could barely zip my jacket. The door slammed shut behind me. Through the window, I saw Madison watching me go. She wasn't crying anymore. She was smiling. The rain hit me like a wall, cold, furious, relentless. Within seconds, I was soaked through completely. I stood on the porch for a moment, waiting for the door to open, for someone to say they'd overreacted. It stayed shut. So I started walking. Nowhere really, just away. My phone was down to 8%. I tried calling my friend Sarah, no answer. Jessica, straight to voicemail. It was Friday night, everyone was home, warm, safe with their families. Not me. The library was dark and locked. The bus station was 2 miles off, and if I could just make it there, I could sit somewhere dry and figure out the rest. So I walked. My shoes filled with water with every step. Lightning split the sky wide open, and for 1 weak second I almost turned back, almost knocked, almost begged to come home. But I couldn't unsee my father's face. Sick daughter. Maybe he was right. Maybe something really was wrong with me. Why else would my own family choose Madison every single time without fail? I never saw the headlights until it was almost too late. I was crossing at an intersection, certain the light was green, but the rain was a wall and the wind was a scream, and I couldn't see 10 feet in front of me. The horn, the brakes. The impact threw me sideways, my body meeting the hood and then the pavement, my skull cracking against the asphalt in a burst of white-hot pain. Rain poured into my open eyes. Everything tilted wrong. A car door slammed, footsteps splashing toward me at a run. Oh my God, sweetheart, can you hear me? A woman's voice, panicked but sharp. Don't move, just stay still. I'm calling 911. I tried to answer, nothing came out but a whisper. My parents. Okay, what's their number? I'll call them. They don't, I coughed, tasted blood. They don't want me, they said I'm sick, said they don't want me anymore. I felt her go still above me. Something shifted in her face, recognition, or maybe horror. You're going to be okay, she said, and her voice shook even as she said it. I promise you're going to be okay. Sirens rose in the distance. Her face was the last thing I saw before everything went dark. My first clear memory afterward is sound, beeping machines, buzzing fluorescent lights, the sharp smell of antiseptic, and a voice I recognized. She has a severe concussion, possible internal bleeding. You need to keep her for observation. I'm staying, the same voice said, firmer now, not panicked, resolute. I'm not leaving her alone. Ma'am, are you family? I'm the one who hit her with my car. I'm staying until her parents arrive. Time slipped in and out after that. At some point I heard new voices, voices I knew. We're Olivia Sterling's parents. My father strained. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling. The woman's voice had gone cold and precise. I'm Dr. Eleanor Smith. A pause. I could almost hear the recognition land. You're a professor at the State University. Dean of Graduate Studies, actually, she said. I'm also the one who hit your daughter with my car tonight. It was an accident, we don't blame. She was 15 years old, alone, in the middle of a storm at 11 at night. Why was she out there? Silence. I asked you a question. We had a family situation, a discipline issue. What kind of discipline issue, Dr. Smith said slowly, involves putting a child out into a storm? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Because your daughter told me something before she lost consciousness. She said her parents didn't want her anymore. She said you told her she was sick. More silence, heavier this time. You're lying, Madison's voice small and scared. Olivia's making that up. She was barely conscious. She wasn't making up anything. I heard footsteps moving away from the bed. Now I need to speak with a social worker. That won't be necessary, my father said, trying and failing to sound authoritative. We're her parents, we'll handle this. With respect, sir, you've handled it enough. The moment you put a minor out into a storm, this stopped being a private family matter. A police officer's voice joined in soon after. Mr. Sterling, we need to ask you some questions. We haven't done anything wrong, my mother said, though her voice betrayed her. Your daughter was hit by a car at 11 p.m. in a major storm. She's 15. We need to understand why she wasn't home. I managed to flutter my eyes open. Shapes swam into view, my father's silhouette, Madison behind him. She's waking up, Dr. Smith said. Everyone out now. She's our daughter. And I'm the doctor in this room. Out. The door closed. I felt her hand close gently around mine. You're safe now, she whispered. I promise you're safe. I wanted so badly to believe her. I hadn't felt safe in years. When I woke 3 days later, my parents were gone. Dr. Smith was still there. She'd kept her promise, she hadn't left me once. My parents visited exactly one time during my 4-day hospital stay. They brought a bag of clothes and stood awkwardly at the foot of the bed, like strangers who'd wandered into the wrong room. We're glad you're okay, my mother said. My father nodded. You gave us quite a scare. Neither one said sorry. Neither one asked if I wanted to come home. Madison never came at all. On the 5th day, a social worker named Rita sat with me and asked gentle questions about my family, about that night, about everything that had led up to it. I told her all of it, Madison's lies, the years of being chosen last, the word sick. Olivia, she said, you have options, you don't have to go back. Where else would I go? That's when Dr. Smith stepped in. She could stay with me, temporary foster placement, until we figure out something permanent if that's what you want. She looked at Rita. I've already started the paperwork. Why would you do that? My voice cracked. You don't even know me. She sat on the edge of my bed. Because someone once did it for me. I was 17 when my own family threw me out. A teacher took me in and changed everything. She took my hand. "You're brilliant, Olivia. Don't let anyone tell you you're sick. Don't let anyone dim that light." I cried, I couldn't help it. "I'll understand if you want to go home," she said softly. "But if you want something different, I'm here." I made my choice in that hospital room. I chose different. There's a version of that decision that sounds simple when I say it out loud now, years later, like it was obvious, like anyone in my position would have chosen the stranger with the kind eyes over the parents who'd raised them. It wasn't simple at all. I remember lying awake that last night in the hospital, staring at the ceiling tiles, terrified that choosing Eleanor meant something was permanently, irreversibly wrong with me, that I was the one abandoning my family, rather than the other way around. It took me years of therapy, much later, to understand that walking towards safety isn't betrayal. It's just survival with better instincts than most people ever get the chance to develop. 6 months later, I was a different person entirely. Same name and entirely new life. Dr. Smith's house was quiet and full of books and soft classical music. She gave me the guest room and told me to make it mine. I transferred schools and started over. No one there knew about Madison, about my parents, about being called sick. I was simply Livia, focused, curious, finally allowed to breathe. Eleanor, she insisted I drop the doctor at home, opened up a whole world I'd never seen. University lectures, research symposiums, dinner conversations about policy and equity and systemic change. "Education is freedom," she told me once. "Knowledge is power, no one can take that from you." I threw myself into school like it was oxygen. Straight A's stopped being just grades, they were proof. Proof I wasn't broken, wasn't wrong, wasn't the thing my father had called me in the rain. By senior year, I had a plan. Study education policy, build something that helps the kids who fall through the cracks the way I almost had. Turn the worst night of my life into a purpose. College blurred by in study sessions and slow, careful lessons in learning to trust people again. I graduated with honors, and Eleanor cried harder at that ceremony than I did. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "So incredibly proud." I was hired almost immediately as a research coordinator at Eleanor's own university, in a different building, keeping things professional but still close. At 25, I had an idea, a scholarship for students coming out of the situations I'd survived, kids who'd been thrown out, neglected, or discarded, who just needed one more chance. I called it the Second Chances Scholarship. Eleanor helped me write the first grant proposals. We landed funding, launched a pilot at one school, then two, then five. By 27, we distributed over $200,000 and kept 47 students in school, alive and hopeful. Local papers started calling. Education journals wanted interviews. I told my story in careful outline. A girl once told she didn't belong but never named names. Then one afternoon, my colleague David knocked on my office door. "Olivia, you're being considered for keynote speaker at a graduation. Riverside State." My stomach dropped. "That's my sister's school." "You have a sister." "Not anymore," I said quietly. "But yes, she graduates this spring." I sat with the applications stacked neatly on my desk, 47 names, 47 second chances, and thought about Madison in her cap and gown, about my parents in the crowd, still convinced they'd made the right call 13 years ago. "I need to talk to Eleanor," I said. That night over dinner, I laid it all out. They have no idea I exist like this, no idea what I built. "What do you want to happen?" she asked. "I want to close the chapter properly, not with anger, with truth. This isn't revenge, it's honesty." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Then do it with your head held high. Show them exactly who you became." I called David the next morning. "Tell them I accept." Through old classmates and social media, I caught glimpses of Madison's life without meaning to. Her feed was a highlight reel, brunches, filtered photos, captions thanking the two best people in the world for supporting her every step of the way. There wasn't a single trace of me in her entire digital history. I found out, almost by accident, that her friends were dreading the keynote speech at graduation. Those speeches are always boring," she'd apparently written in a group chat, unaware the boring speaker was me. I wrote my speech over 2 weeks, cutting and rewriting until it was clean. Eleanor's advice stuck with me: don't use names. Tell the story. Let people connect the dots themselves. The morning of the ceremony, I dressed in a navy suit and borrowed Eleanor's grandmother's pearls. In the mirror, I saw someone composed and sure of herself, nothing like the drenched 15-year-old who'd once been called sick in a thunderstorm. Backstage, I scanned the program. Row 3, Madison Sterling, Bachelor of Arts, Communications. My heart slammed against my ribs. "You okay?" David asked. "Ready," I said and meant it. President Walsh introduced me from the podium. She's dedicated her career to ensuring every student has access to opportunity. Please welcome the director of the Second Chances Scholarship Program, Ms. Olivia Sterling. I walked into the light, steady, unhurried. And then I found her row 3, cap and gown, honor cords, mid-clap, mid-laugh with the girl beside her. She looked up. Her hands froze in the air. Confusion, then recognition, then something closer to fear moved across her face in the span of a single breath. Behind her, my parents were still clapping politely, not yet placing the name. I reached the podium and let my voice fill the room. "Good morning. Thank you, President Walsh, for that generous introduction. Today I want to talk about resilience, about what happens when you lose everything and find yourself anyway." I watched my father's head snap up, trying to place my voice. My mother's hand flew to her chest. "Let me tell you about a 15-year-old girl," I said, steady and clear. She was told she didn't belong, that something was fundamentally wrong with her. One night, in the middle of a storm, she was told to leave and never come back. A ripple of uncomfortable movement passed through the crowd. She wandered alone for hours. No phone, no money, nowhere to go. She was hit by a car. She nearly died. I paused just long enough. But someone stopped. Someone saw potential where everyone else had only seen a problem. That person became her family in every way that actually mattered. Madison had gone completely rigid. That girl was me. You could have heard a single raindrop fall in that auditorium. My father half rose from his seat before my mother pulled him back down. Madison stared at her lap like she wanted the floor to open beneath her. "I'm here today because someone didn't give up on me when my own family did," I said, gesturing to Eleanor in the front row. "She taught me that rejection isn't an ending, it's a beginning. The Second Chances Scholarship exists because of that lesson. It's helped 47 students so far, students like the girl I used to be." I let my eyes rest, briefly, on Madison. Because being rejected doesn't define you, what you do afterward does. I told them about the 47 students the scholarship had already reached. A boy who'd been sleeping in his car for 2 months before someone flagged his application. A girl who'd been supporting 3 younger siblings on a part-time paycheck while still making the dean's list. I told them, without naming her, about a woman who'd found me broken on the side of a road and refused to leave, who taught me that family is a decision people make about you every single day, not a fact printed on a birth certificate. "I used to think the worst night of my life ended me," I said. "It didn't. It just ended the version of my life where I stayed small enough to fit inside someone else's comfort." By the time I closed with, "Your worth is not determined by who stays, it's determined by how you grow after they leave," the applause built from a ripple into a wave. Faculty stood. Students stood. My father stayed seated, hands over his face. My mother stood mechanically, mascara running freely. Madison never moved at all. I watched the rest of the ceremony from the wings. When Madison's name was called, her smile looked stitched on. Her hands shook as she took her diploma, and the applause for her was thin, scattered, uncertain, nothing like the roar that had greeted the students before her. Afterward, David found me. I had no idea. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Your family wants to talk. They're at the side entrance." I found them waiting there, my father gray and hollow, my mother's makeup smeared, Madison hovering behind them with red-rimmed eyes. "We didn't know you'd be here," my father said. "I'm sure you didn't." "You look well," my mother managed. "I am well," Dr. Smith made sure of that. "We owe you an apology," my father said. "You owe me a lot more than that, but it's a start." "We were wrong," my mother said. "We should have listened." You should have protected me, I said, keeping my voice level. That's what parents do. David appeared with a folder of scholarship applications and testimonials, official letterhead, my title printed clean across the top. My mother took it with trembling hands and read through it in silence. You did all this, my father asked. Despite everything, I said. President Walsh joined us a moment later, oblivious to the tension thickening the air. Are you Olivia's family? You must be so proud. Silence stretched long enough to be its own answer. They are, Eleanor said smoothly. Aren't you, Mr. Sterling? Yes, he said, very proud. After Walsh moved on, my father looked at me for a long moment. We had no idea. You never asked, I said quietly. You erased me, pretended I never existed. I tried to find you, my mother whispered. After the hospital, you disappeared. I changed my name. I needed you not to find me. I needed space to heal. Did you, my father asked, heal? Yes, no thanks to you. A few of Madison's friends approached, visibly confused. Is that really your sister? One asked her. Madison could barely speak. Yes. You told everyone she died. Madison's face went scarlet. It was easier than explaining. Explaining what? Another friend pressed. That your family kicked her out, that you lied about her. I'm sorry, the third one said to me. I'm so sorry this happened to you. They walked away, and Madison stood there alone, watching them go. I wanted to tell the truth so many times, she said to me eventually. I was scared everyone would hate me. They were right to be upset, I told her. But Madison, I don't hate you. I forgive you for my own peace, not yours. I don't want a relationship, though. I need you to respect that. Can't we just? No, firm, final. You made a choice, 13 years run. Ning to keep me erased. That's not childhood stupidity anymore. That's who you decided to become. I looked at Eleanor. Can we go? Let's go home, she said, and linked her arm through mine. We didn't look back. If you've ever had to draw a hard line with people who share your blood, but not your values, drop a comment. Boundaries matter more than most people realize, and I'll tell you what happened in the weeks after that ceremony. My phone filled with voicemails from my father. Please call back. We need to talk. I'm so sorry. My mother sent long emails full of excuses and apologies tangled together. I let them sit unanswered. The speech, it turned out, had been filmed by someone in the crowd and posted online. It climbed to 50,000 views, then 100,000. Comments poured in, some kind, some curious, a few doubting it was even real. Then came an email from one of Madison's former friends, screenshots of a group chat where her old circle was quietly cutting ties. I can't believe she told people her sister was dead. I'm uninviting her from my wedding. Her carefully built social world was unraveling in real time. Part of me felt a flicker of sympathy. A much larger part felt only relief. How are you processing all of this? Eleanor asked one night over dinner. I thought about it for a long moment. Free, I finally said. Like I put down something heavy I didn't even realize I'd been carrying my whole life. 2 weeks later, my father showed up at my office unannounced. He looked 10 years older than I remembered, gray, hollowed out, shoulders slumped like something had finally caught up with him. I need you to understand, he said. We've been living with this every single day. We look at your empty room, the photos we took down, and we know what we destroyed. You're right, I said. You can't get it back. Can you forgive us? Forgiveness isn't the issue, trust is, and that's gone. He left without another word. 3 days after that, an email arrived from Madison, subject line, I'm sorry. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. She admitted everything, the jealousy over Jake, the fabricated screenshots, the self-inflicted bruise, the calculation behind every tear. I didn't think it would go that far. I didn't think Dad would actually throw you out. I've spent 13 years lying to everyone, including myself. I read it twice, saved it, and didn't answer. 4 more emails followed, each more desperate than the last. Eventually, I sent one final reply. I accept that you were young, but you had 13 years to correct it and chose to keep me erased instead. I forgive you for my own peace. I don't want contact, please respect that. She stopped writing after that. The scholarship program kept growing. A local news segment on our work led to funding requests from 3 additional universities. Applications tripled almost overnight. I was promoted to senior director, given a corner office, invited to speak at a national conference on educational equity. Eleanor was invited to that same conference as a keynote. Come with me, she said, as my guest and my colleague. Madison's social media went quiet not long after. Her accounts eventually locked to the public entirely. My father sent one final message. We're proud of you, even if we have no right to be. I didn't respond to that one either. A year after that graduation, the Second Chances Scholarship had expanded to 10 universities and 83 students who'd stayed in school because someone believed they were worth the investment. I dated a kind man named Marcus for a while. It ended amicably, and I learned that not every ending has to hurt. We threw Eleanor a party for her 60th birthday. Former students, colleagues, people she'd chosen and been chosen by over the years. I stood up to give a toast. To the woman who taught me that family is built, not born, thank you for choosing me. She cried happy tears the whole way through. Every Christmas, an unsigned card arrives with 3 names printed at the bottom and no return address. I keep them in a drawer. I don't throw them away and I don't respond. I just let them exist. I spoke at another graduation not long ago. Afterward, a young woman came up to me in tears. That was my story too. My family kicked me out at 16. I thought I was completely alone. You're not alone, I told her. You're surviving, that's more than enough. Driving home that night to the house I share with Eleanor, my real mother, in every way that matters, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. Sometimes people who hear this story want a cleaner ending than the one I actually have. They want me to say I eventually reconciled with my parents, that Madison and I found our way back to something resembling sisterhood, that time healed what the storm broke. I understand the impulse. Neat endings are comforting. But the truth is quieter and messier than that. My father still emails me on my birthday, one line, never more. My mother sends a card every Christmas with no note inside it at all, just her name and my father's and Madison's, like an attendance sheet. I haven't answered any of them, and I've stopped feeling guilty about that particular silence. Not answering isn't cruelty. It's just the boundary holding exactly where I built it to hold. Madison, from what I understand through old mutual acquaintances, eventually moved to another state, started over the way I once did, though I don't know the details and I've made peace with not knowing them. Maybe she built something good out of the wreckage the way I did. I hope she did, honestly, in the same distant way you hope a stranger's life turns out okay. I just don't need a front row seat to find out. People sometimes ask if I regret that storm, the pain, the hospital bed. I don't, because it led me here to this work, this life, this family I built by hand instead of inheriting by accident. I know I'm one of the lucky ones. Eleanor found me. Not everyone gets that. But everyone gets to decide who has access to them, and everyone gets to set that boundary for themselves. Forgiveness and reconciliation aren't the same thing. You can forgive someone entirely for your own sake and still choose to keep them out of your life. Those two things aren't in conflict. Sometimes they're both necessary at once. Blood doesn't make a family, showing up does. Consistency does. Eleanor showed up every day for 13 straight years. She earned the word mother the hard way. My biological parents showed up exactly once, failed, and never tried again. That tells you everything you need to know about the difference between the two. Success was never about proving anyone wrong. It was about building something that mattered despite them. Revenge tries to hurt people. Purpose tries to heal them. That's the entire difference, and it's the only one that matters. Your worth was never determined by who chose to stay. It's determined by what you build after they leave. I think a lot, too, about the version of me that could have existed if that car hadn't stopped that night. If Eleanor had driven past like every other car on that road did. If I'd simply been another statistic in a storm nobody remembered by morning. I don't dwell there long, because it's not a useful place to live, but I do think it's important to say out loud. I didn't survive because I was strong. I survived because someone happened to be driving down the right road at the right moment and refused to leave me there. Luck and love arrived at the exact same time, wearing the same coat, and I've spent every year since trying to be that same kind of luck for someone else. That's really the whole engine behind the scholarship program, if I'm honest. It isn't charity, and it was never really about me proving anything to my parents. It's about making sure that the next 15-year-old standing in a storm doesn't have to depend entirely on chance the way I did. It's about building a road that someone is already driving down before the storm even starts. I'm 28 now, the same age I was when I first started telling this story out loud. But I feel older, wiser, whole. My parents are still saved in my phone. I haven't deleted them and I haven't called either. They live in my past now, not my present, and certainly not my future. Every October on the anniversary of that storm, I drive past the house I grew up in. Not to punish myself, just to remember. I park across the street and look at those old windows and think, that girl survived being called sick, being thrown away, being told she was too broken to keep. And she didn't just survive it. She built an entire life out of the wreckage. If you're standing in your own storm right now, real or otherwise, you can survive it too. You can even come out the other side and thrive. Someone giving up on you was never permission to give up on yourself. Set your boundaries, choose your family, build your purpose, and never let anyone convince you that you're too sick, too broken, or too much to be loved exactly as you are. You are exactly enough. Thank you for staying with me through all of this. If it meant something to you, I'd love it if you'd like and subscribe. It genuinely helps stories like this reach the people who need them most. And if you want more, you'll find similar stories linked below. Remember, you define your own worth. Nobody else gets that job. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.